Most people think confidence is about feeling good about yourself. They think it's about positive self-talk, standing up straight, and believing you can do anything. That's not confidence. That's delusion. Real confidence, dangerous confidence, is something completely different. It's not about feeling anything. It's about knowing. Knowing that no matter what situation you walk into, no matter who you're dealing with, no matter what challenges come your way, you have the psychological tools and mental frameworks to handle it. Not because you're pretending to be confident, but because you've systematically built unshakable inner certainty through proven psychological techniques. Here's what most people don't understand about confidence. It's not a personality trait you're born with. It's not something some people have and others don't. Confidence is a skill, a learnable, trainable, systematic skill that operates according to specific psychological principles. And once you understand these principles, once you know how to apply them, you don't just become confident, you become dangerously confident. The kind of person who walks into any room and immediately shifts the energy. The kind of person who speaks and people listen. The kind of person who other people instinctively respect and want to follow. By the time you finish this, you will not think about confidence the same way ever again. You're going to learn the real psychology behind unshakable confidence. You're going to discover why everything you've been told about building confidence is wrong. And you're going to get a step-by-step system for developing dangerous confidence that works faster than anything you've ever tried. But understand this. What I'm about to share with you is not for everyone. This is for people who are serious about transforming how they show up in the world. This is for people who want to operate at a level that 99% of people will never reach. Chapter 1. The confidence lie that keeps you weak. Before we talk about how to build dangerous confidence, we need to destroy the lies you've been told about what confidence actually is. Because as long as you're operating from false beliefs about confidence, every technique you try will fail. Every method you attempt will leave you feeling more insecure than when you started. The confidence industry has fed you a massive lie. And this lie is the reason you're still struggling. Lie number 1. Confidence comes from positive thinking. This is the biggest load of garbage ever sold to human beings. The idea that you can think your way to confidence by repeating affirmations and telling yourself how great you are is not just wrong, it's psychologically destructive. Here's why. When you try to convince yourself of something you don't actually believe, your subconscious mind recognizes the lie immediately. And instead of building confidence, you create internal conflict. You're essentially gaslighting yourself. And your brain knows it. Real confidence doesn't come from positive thinking. It comes from evidence. It comes from proof. It comes from a track record of handling difficult situations and coming out stronger. Your subconscious mind doesn't care about your affirmations. It cares about your actual experiences. It cares about the data you've collected, about your ability to handle challenges. When you try to bypass this process with positive thinking, you're building a house on sand. The moment you face real pressure, real challenge, real adversity, that fake confidence crumbles instantly. Lie number 2. Confident people don't feel fear or anxiety. This is another destructive myth that keeps people trapped in insecurity. The truth is, truly confident people feel fear all the time. They feel anxiety, doubt, nervousness, and uncertainty just like everyone else. The difference is they don't let these feelings control their actions. They've learned to act in spite of fear, not in the absence of it. They understand that courage isn't the lack of fear, it's action despite fear. When you believe that confident people don't feel scared, you set yourself up for failure. Because the moment you feel nervous or anxious, you think something is wrong with you. You think you're not confident enough. You think you need to work on yourself more before you can take action. This creates a vicious cycle where you're constantly waiting to feel ready, constantly waiting to feel confident, constantly waiting for the fear to go away. But here's the brutal truth. The fear never goes away completely. You either learn to act despite it, or you stay stuck forever. Lie number 3. Confidence is about believing in yourself. This sounds inspirational, but it's completely backwards. Real confidence isn't about believing in yourself. It's about trusting your ability to figure things out as you go. It's about knowing that even if you don't have all the answers right now, even if you don't know exactly how things will work out, you have the mental tools and psychological resilience to adapt and overcome whatever comes your way. The difference is crucial. When you focus on believing in yourself, you're putting pressure on yourself to already be the person you want to become. You're demanding that you already have capabilities you haven't developed yet. This creates massive internal pressure and sets you up for disappointment. But when you focus on trusting your ability to figure things out, you remove that pressure. You give yourself permission to not have all the answers. You give yourself permission to learn as you go. You give yourself permission to be human. Lie number 4. Fake it till you make it actually works. This is perhaps the most damaging piece of confidence advice ever given. The idea that you can pretend to be confident until you actually become confident is not just ineffective, it's counterproductive. When you're faking confidence, you're in a constant state of psychological stress. You're constantly worried about being found out. You're constantly monitoring yourself to make sure you're maintaining the facade. This level of self-consciousness is the exact opposite of what real confidence feels like. Real confidence is unconscious competence. It's when you're so comfortable with who you are and what you're capable of that you're not thinking about confidence at all. You're just being yourself and handling whatever comes up. When you're faking it, you're in a state of conscious incompetence. You don't really feel confident, but you're trying to act like you do. This creates internal tension that other people can sense immediately. They might not be able to put their finger on it, but something feels off. Something feels forced. The reason these lies are so destructive is that they all focus on managing your internal state instead of building actual competence. They're all about trying to feel confident rather than becoming confident. They're all about managing symptoms rather than addressing root causes. And as long as you're focused on managing your feelings about confidence instead of building real confidence, you'll stay trapped in the same cycles of insecurity and self-doubt. True confidence isn't about how you feel. It's about who you are. It's about the skills you've developed, the challenges you've overcome, the competencies you've built. It's about having a realistic assessment of your abilities and knowing that those abilities are strong enough to handle whatever life throws at you. It's not about feeling invincible. It's about being genuinely capable. Chapter 2. The Neuroscience of dangerous confidence. To build dangerous confidence, you need to understand exactly how confidence works in your brain. Because confidence isn't just a feeling or a mindset. It's a specific neurological process that follows predictable patterns. And once you understand these patterns, you can deliberately trigger them to create unshakable inner certainty that no external circumstance can touch. Your brain has two primary systems that determine your confidence level: the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. The limbic system is your emotional brain. It's ancient, fast, and powerful. It's designed to keep you alive by detecting threats and triggering fight, flight, or freeze responses. The prefrontal cortex is your rational brain. It's newer, slower, but more sophisticated. It's responsible for complex thinking, planning, and decision-making. Here's what happens when you lack confidence. Your limbic system perceives social situations, challenging conversations, or unfamiliar environments as threats. It floods your system with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones shut down your prefrontal cortex and put you into survival mode. In survival mode, you can't think clearly. You can't access your full intelligence. You can't perform at your best. You become reactive instead of responsive. But here's the critical insight. Your limbic system doesn't distinguish between real threats and imagined threats. It doesn't know the difference between a job interview and a saber-toothed tiger. It responds to both with the same fight or flight response. This is why you can feel terrified in situations that are objectively safe. Your ancient brain is treating a conversation with your boss like a life or death situation. Dangerous confidence happens when you've trained your brain to recognize that most social and professional challenges are not actually threats. When your limbic system stays calm, your prefrontal cortex stays online. When your prefrontal cortex stays online, you can access your full intelligence, creativity, and problem-solving abilities. You can think clearly under pressure. You can communicate effectively in difficult situations. You can make good decisions even when stakes are high. The key to building this kind of confidence is understanding neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on your experiences. Every time you face a challenge and survive it, you're literally building new neural pathways that say, "This type of situation is manageable." Every time you avoid a challenge or let fear control your actions, you're reinforcing neural pathways that say, "This type of situation is dangerous." This is why exposure therapy works so well for phobias and anxiety disorders. When you repeatedly expose yourself to something you fear in a controlled way, your brain eventually learns that it's not actually dangerous. The fear response gets weaker and weaker until it disappears entirely. The same principle applies to confidence. Every time you do something that scares you and come out okay, you're building confidence at the neurological level. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think they need to jump straight into the deep end. They think they need to face their biggest fears immediately. This approach usually backfires because it overwhelms your nervous system. If you're socially anxious and you force yourself to give a presentation to 500 people, you're likely to have such a negative experience that it actually reinforces your fear instead of building confidence. The secret is progressive exposure. You start with challenges that are just slightly outside your comfort zone. Challenges that create a little stress but don't overwhelm your system. You master those challenges until they become easy. Then you take on slightly bigger challenges. You keep escalating gradually, always staying just at the edge of your comfort zone, but never going so far that you trigger a full panic response. This process works because of something called stress inoculation. When you expose yourself to manageable amounts of stress repeatedly, your nervous system becomes more resilient. Your baseline stress tolerance increases. Situations that used to overwhelm you become manageable. Challenges that used to paralyze you become energizing. There's another crucial neurological component to dangerous confidence: mirror neurons. These are brain cells that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing that action. Mirror neurons are how you learn social behaviors. They're how you pick up on other people's emotions and energy. And they're how confidence becomes contagious. When you're around genuinely confident people, your mirror neurons start firing in response to their confidence. Your brain begins to mimic their neural patterns. This is why confidence is so contagious and why insecurity is equally contagious. You literally catch emotional states from the people around you. This has massive implications for building confidence. If you want to become dangerously confident, you need to immerse yourself in environments where that level of confidence is normal. You need to study confident people. Not just watch them, but really study how they think, how they move, how they speak, how they make decisions. Your mirror neurons will start adopting these patterns automatically. But here's the advanced technique. You can also use mirror neurons to program your own confidence. When you visualize yourself behaving confidently, when you mentally rehearse confident behaviors, your mirror neurons fire as if you're actually doing those things. This is why visualization is so powerful for athletes and performers. They're literally programming their brains for peak performance. The final piece of the neurological puzzle is understanding the role of dopamine in confidence. Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but that's not accurate. Dopamine is actually the anticipation chemical. It gets released when you're expecting something good to happen, and it plays a crucial role in motivation and confidence. When you have a track record of success, your brain learns to expect positive outcomes. This triggers dopamine release, which makes you feel motivated and confident about taking on new challenges. But when you have a track record of failure or avoidance, your brain expects negative outcomes. This suppresses dopamine and makes you feel unmotivated and insecure. This is why building a track record of small wins is so important for confidence. Every time you succeed at something, even something small, you're training your brain to expect success. You're building positive momentum that compounds over time. You're literally rewiring your brain to default to confidence instead of insecurity. Chapter 3. The Confidence Operating System. Now that you understand the neuroscience, let's talk about the practical system for building dangerous confidence. This isn't about motivation or mindset. This is about installing a completely new operating system in your brain that automatically generates confidence in any situation. This system has 4 core components: competence stacking, social calibration, emotional regulation, and reality distortion. Competence stacking is the foundation of everything else. Most people try to build confidence by working on their self-esteem or their mindset. This is backwards. Real confidence comes from real competence. It comes from actually being good at things that matter. It comes from having genuine skills and capabilities that you can rely on when things get difficult. Here's how competence stacking works. You identify the key areas where confidence matters most in your life. Maybe it's professional situations, social interactions, romantic relationships, or leadership scenarios. For each area, you break down the specific skills and competencies that confident people in those areas possess. Then, you systematically develop those competencies through deliberate practice. For example, if you want to be confident in professional situations, some key competencies might include clear communication, strategic thinking, conflict resolution, presentation skills, networking ability, and industry expertise. You don't try to develop all of these at once. You pick one, focus on it intensely until you reach genuine competence, then move to the next one. The key is specificity. Instead of trying to become more confident at work, you focus on becoming genuinely excellent at specific skills that generate confidence in work environments. Instead of trying to become more socially confident, you focus on developing specific social skills like reading body language, starting conversations, telling engaging stories, and managing group dynamics. This approach works because your subconscious mind can't argue with genuine competence. When you know you're actually good at something, when you have proof of your abilities, confidence happens automatically. You don't have to convince yourself of anything. You don't have to fake anything. You just know what you're capable of. And that knowledge creates unshakable inner certainty. Social calibration is the second component. This is your ability to read social situations accurately and respond appropriately. Most people who struggle with confidence have poor social calibration. They either completely misread social dynamics, or they're so worried about how they're being perceived that they can't focus on what's actually happening around them. Dangerous confidence requires exquisite social calibration. You need to be able to walk into any room and quickly assess the social dynamics, the power structures, the unspoken rules, and the emotional undercurrents. You need to understand not just what people are saying, but what they're really communicating. You need to pick up on subtle social cues that most people miss completely. This skill develops through focused attention and practice. You start paying careful attention to social dynamics in every interaction. You watch how people position themselves physically. You notice who speaks first, who gets interrupted, who others look at for approval. You observe patterns in how conversations flow, how decisions get made, and how influence gets exercised. You also study high-status, confident people specifically. You watch how they enter rooms, how they position their bodies, how they use their voice, how they handle disagreement, how they command attention. You're not trying to copy them exactly, but you're learning the underlying principles of confident behavior. The goal is to develop such sharp social awareness that you always know where you stand in any interaction. You can sense when someone is trying to test you, challenge you, or manipulate you. You can feel when the energy in a room shifts. You can tell when someone is genuinely interested versus just being polite. This level of social intelligence eliminates most of the uncertainty that creates insecurity in the first place. Emotional regulation is the third component. This is your ability to manage your internal emotional state, regardless of external circumstances. Most people's confidence is completely dependent on how they feel in the moment. If they feel good, they're confident. If they feel anxious or uncertain, their confidence disappears. Dangerous confidence means your internal state is largely independent of external circumstances. You feel centered and capable whether you're being praised or criticized, whether things are going well or falling apart. whether you're in familiar territory or completely out of your depth. This doesn't mean you don't feel emotions. It means you don't let emotions control your behavior. You feel fear, but act courageously anyway. You feel uncertainty, but make decisions confidently anyway. You feel pressure, but perform calmly anyway. Emotional regulation happens through three primary mechanisms: breath control, cognitive reframing, and exposure conditioning. Breath control is the fastest way to influence your nervous system. When you control your breathing, you directly influence your heart rate, stress hormone levels, and mental clarity. Deep, slow breathing activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for the calm, confident state you want to access. Cognitive reframing is changing how you interpret situations and events. Instead of seeing challenges as threats, you learn to see them as opportunities. Instead of seeing criticism as attacks, you learn to see them as feedback. Instead of seeing failure as proof of your inadequacy, you learn to see it as valuable data for improvement. Exposure conditioning is systematically exposing yourself to situations that trigger emotional reactivity so you can build tolerance and control. This is similar to the progressive exposure we talked about earlier, but specifically focused on emotional regulation rather than competence building. Reality distortion is the fourth and most advanced component. This is your ability to shape other people's perception of you and the situation through your presence, energy, and communication. When you master reality distortion, you don't just respond to social dynamics, you create them. You don't just adapt to the energy in the room, you set it. This might sound manipulative, but it's not about deception or control. It's about taking responsibility for the energy you bring to every interaction. It's about being so clear about who you are and what you stand for that other people naturally align with your frame of reference. Reality distortion happens through what psychologists call presence. Presence is a combination of confidence, authenticity, and focused attention that creates a magnetic effect on other people. When you have true presence, people are drawn to you. They want to hear what you have to say. They trust your judgment. They follow your lead. Presence develops through the integration of all the other components. When you have genuine competence, accurate social calibration, and strong emotional regulation, presence emerges naturally. You become someone who other people instinctively respect and want to be around. Chapter 4. Psychological Warfare. How to Destroy Self-Doubt Forever. Self-doubt is not just a feeling. It's a sophisticated psychological warfare system that your own mind uses against you. And until you understand exactly how this system works, until you can recognize its tactics and defend against them, you will never achieve dangerous confidence. Self-doubt operates like a virus in your mental operating system, constantly running background programs that sabotage your success and undermine your capabilities. The first thing you need to understand about self-doubt is that it's not rational. It doesn't operate according to logic or evidence. Self-doubt is an emotional defense mechanism that your brain developed to protect you from rejection, failure, and social exile. In ancient times, being rejected by your tribe meant death. So your brain evolved sophisticated early warning systems to detect any possibility of social rejection and trigger powerful avoidance behaviors. The problem is that this ancient survival mechanism is completely inappropriate for modern life. Your brain still treats a difficult conversation with your boss like a threat to your survival. It still responds to the possibility of failure like it's a matter of life and death. This is why self-doubt feels so intense and overwhelming. It's not just an inconvenient emotion. It's your survival instincts misfiring in situations that aren't actually dangerous. Self-doubt uses 5 primary weapons against you: catastrophizing, mind-reading, fortune-telling, personalization, and all-or-nothing thinking. Understanding these weapons is the first step in defending against them. Catastrophizing is when your mind automatically jumps to the worst possible outcome in any situation. You have to give a presentation, and your brain immediately starts imagining everything that could go wrong. You'll forget what to say. The technology will malfunction. People will think you're incompetent. You'll lose your job. Your career will be ruined. Your life will fall apart. This kind of thinking is not preparation or planning. It's psychological self-sabotage. When you catastrophize, you're programming your brain to expect disaster. You're creating anxiety and stress that makes disaster more likely to actually happen. You're spending mental energy on problems that don't exist instead of focusing on performing well. Mind reading is when you assume you know what other people are thinking about you, and you always assume they're thinking something negative. You walk into a meeting and someone doesn't make eye contact, so you assume they're angry at you. You tell a joke and someone doesn't laugh, so you assume they think you're stupid. You suggest an idea and someone looks skeptical, so you assume they think you're incompetent. The reality is that you have no idea what other people are thinking most of the time. People are usually thinking about their own problems, their own challenges, their own lives. They're not sitting around analyzing your every move and finding you lacking. But self-doubt convinces you that everyone is constantly judging you and finding you deficient. Fortune-telling is when you predict negative outcomes with absolute certainty, even though you have no way of knowing what will actually happen. You decide not to apply for a promotion because you know you won't get it. You don't ask someone out because you know they'll reject you. You don't start a business because you know it will fail. This kind of thinking is not wisdom or realistic planning. It's self-fulfilling prophecy. When you predict failure with certainty, you either don't try at all or you try half-heartedly. Either way, you guarantee the negative outcome you predicted. Personalization is when you take responsibility for things that have nothing to do with you. Someone is in a bad mood, and you assume it's because of something you did. A project doesn't go well, and you blame yourself even though there were multiple factors involved. A conversation feels awkward, and you decide it's because you're socially incompetent. This kind of thinking gives you a false sense of control by making you the center of everything that goes wrong. But it also creates enormous psychological pressure and unnecessary guilt. Most of what happens around you has nothing to do with you. People have their own lives, their own problems, their own moods that exist completely independently of your actions. All-or-nothing thinking is when you see everything in black and white terms. You're either a complete success or a total failure. You either perform perfectly or you're incompetent. You either know everything or you know nothing. There's no middle ground, no nuance, no room for being human. This kind of thinking sets impossible standards that guarantee failure and disappointment. Nobody performs perfectly all the time. Nobody knows everything. Nobody succeeds at everything they try. When you demand perfection from yourself, you're setting yourself up for constant self-criticism and diminished confidence. The reason these weapons are so effective is that they all contain a grain of truth. Sometimes things do go wrong. Sometimes people do judge you negatively. Sometimes you are responsible for negative outcomes. Sometimes you do fail completely. But self-doubt takes these occasional realities and turns them into absolute certainties. It makes exceptions into rules. It turns possibilities into inevitabilities. Fighting back against self-doubt requires what psychologists call cognitive diffusion. This is the ability to recognize your thoughts as mental events rather than absolute truths. Instead of thinking, "I'm going to fail," you learn to think, "I'm having the thought that I'm going to fail." This small shift in language creates psychological distance between you and your thoughts. It reminds you that your thoughts are not facts. You also need to develop what's called the evidence standard. Instead of accepting your negative thoughts automatically, you demand evidence. When your mind tells you that everyone thinks you're incompetent, you ask for specific evidence. What exactly did someone say or do that proves they think you're incompetent? When your mind tells you that you're going to fail, you ask what specific evidence suggests this outcome is inevitable. Most of the time, you'll find that there's no real evidence for your negative thoughts. They're just emotional reactions masquerading as rational analysis. When you consistently demand evidence for negative thoughts, they lose their power over you. The final weapon against self-doubt is building what psychologists call self-compassion. This is the ability to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you would show a good friend. Most people are incredibly harsh with themselves. They say things to themselves that they would never say to another person. They hold themselves to standards they would never expect from others. Self-compassion doesn't mean lowering your standards or accepting mediocrity. It means recognizing that you're human, that you're learning, that you're doing your best with the resources and knowledge you have right now. It means understanding that mistakes and failures are part of the learning process, not evidence of your fundamental inadequacy. When you develop genuine self-compassion, self-doubt loses most of its power. You stop treating every mistake as proof that you're not good enough. You stop interpreting every challenge as evidence that you don't belong. You start seeing setbacks as temporary situations rather than permanent character flaws. Chapter 5. The Alpha Presence Blueprint. Presence is the ultimate expression of dangerous confidence. It's not just about feeling confident internally. It's about projecting confidence so powerfully that other people feel it immediately. When you master presence, you don't have to tell people you're confident. They can sense it the moment you walk into a room. They can feel it in your energy, see it in your posture, hear it in your voice. Most people completely misunderstand what presence actually is. They think it's about being loud, aggressive, or dominating. They think it's about taking up space or commanding attention through force. This is not presence. This is insecurity, masquerading as confidence. Real presence is calm, centered, and completely secure. It doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Presence operates on 4 levels: physical, vocal, emotional, and mental. You need to master all 4 levels to create the kind of magnetic presence that draws people to you and makes them instinctively respect your authority. Physical presence starts with your relationship to gravity. Most people fight gravity. They hold tension in their shoulders, clench their jaws, tighten their stomachs. This creates a rigid defensive posture that signals insecurity and fear. Dangerous confidence requires a completely different relationship with your physical body. You need to learn to work with gravity instead of against it. This means allowing your weight to settle into your lower body. It means relaxing your shoulders and letting them fall into their natural position. It means unclenching your jaw and softening your facial muscles. It means breathing deeply into your belly instead of shallowly into your chest. When you relax into gravity, your posture naturally improves. You become more grounded, more stable, more centered. Other people can sense this stability, and it makes them feel safe and comfortable around you. They trust you more because your body language signals that you're not threatened or defensive. Eye contact is another crucial component of physical presence. Most people either avoid eye contact entirely or use it aggressively. Both approaches signal insecurity. Confident eye contact is steady, warm, and completely relaxed. You're not trying to dominate or intimidate. You're simply present and engaged. The key to confident eye contact is understanding that it's not about staring at people. It's about being genuinely interested in them. When you're focused on understanding someone, when you're really listening to what they're saying, eye contact happens naturally. You're not thinking about whether you're making too much or too little eye contact. You're just connected to the interaction. Movement is the third element of physical presence. Confident people move deliberately and economically. They don't fidget, pace, or make unnecessary gestures. Every movement has purpose and intention. This doesn't mean being rigid or robotic. It means being conscious of how you move through space. Confident movement is also smooth and fluid. There's no jerkiness, no sudden movements, no nervous energy. You move like someone who is completely comfortable in their own body. This kind of movement takes practice. You need to become aware of your habitual movement patterns and consciously refine them. Vocal presence is about much more than just speaking clearly. Your voice carries enormous amounts of information about your emotional state, your confidence level, and your social status. People make unconscious judgments about your competence and authority based purely on how you sound. The foundation of vocal presence is breath support. Most people speak from their throat, which creates a thin, weak sound that signals anxiety and insecurity. Confident speaking comes from deep breath support. You breathe deeply into your diaphragm and use that breath to power your voice. This creates a rich, resonant sound that naturally commands attention. Pace is another crucial element. Nervous people speak too quickly. They rush through their words because they're afraid of taking up too much time or space. Confident people speak at a measured pace. They're not afraid of silence. They understand that pauses add emphasis and give people time to process what they're saying. Volume and tonality also matter enormously. You need to speak loudly enough to be heard clearly without straining or shouting. Your tone should be warm and engaging, not monotone or aggressive. You want to sound like someone who is genuinely interested in communicating, not someone who is trying to prove a point or defend a position. Emotional presence is about your ability to stay centered and calm regardless of what's happening around you. When you have strong emotional presence, other people's anxiety, anger, or negativity doesn't affect your internal state. You remain stable and grounded, even in chaotic or high-pressure situations. This stability is incredibly attractive to other people. In a world where most people are reactive and emotionally volatile, someone who remains calm and centered stands out immediately. They become a source of stability that others naturally gravitate toward. Emotional presence develops through meditation, mindfulness practice, and conscious emotional regulation. You learn to observe your emotions without being controlled by them. You develop the ability to feel angry without acting angry, to feel nervous without appearing nervous, to feel uncertain without projecting uncertainty. Mental presence is about the quality of your attention and focus. When you have strong mental presence, you're completely engaged with whatever is happening right now. You're not thinking about what you're going to say next. You're not worrying about how you're being perceived. You're not mentally rehearsing or planning. You're just present. This kind of presence is rare in our distracted, multitasking world. Most people are only half present in their interactions. They're physically there, but mentally somewhere else. When you learn to be fully present, you create a powerful connection with other people. They feel heard, understood, and valued. Mental presence also means having clear, coherent thoughts. You think before you speak. You express your ideas in logical, organized ways. You don't ramble or contradict yourself. You say what you mean and mean what you say. The integration of all four levels creates what can only be described as charismatic presence. People are drawn to you without understanding exactly why. They trust your judgment even when they don't know you well. They naturally defer to your opinion and follow your lead. This kind of presence cannot be faked or manufactured. It emerges naturally from genuine confidence, competence, and self-awareness. It's not a technique or a tactic. It's the natural expression of someone who has done the deep work of developing dangerous confidence from the inside out. Chapter 6. Social Dominance. How to control any room. Social dominance is not about being aggressive, loud, or intimidating. Real social dominance is the ability to influence social dynamics through presence, intelligence, and strategic behavior. When you master social dominance, you become the person who sets the tone in every interaction. You become the person others look to for leadership and direction. You become the person who shapes reality instead of just reacting to it. The first principle of social dominance is understanding that every social interaction is a negotiation. People are constantly testing boundaries, establishing hierarchies, and positioning themselves relative to others. Most people participate in these negotiations unconsciously. They react emotionally to social challenges instead of responding strategically. They let other people control the frame of the interaction instead of setting their own frame. Dangerous confidence means you participate in social negotiations consciously and strategically. You understand the games being played, and you play them better than anyone else. You don't get offended or defensive when someone tests you. You recognize the test for what it is and respond in a way that establishes your status while maintaining respect for the other person. Frame control is the master skill of social dominance. Your frame is your interpretation of reality, your perspective on what's happening and what it means. In every interaction, there's competition between different frames. Whoever has the strongest frame controls the interaction. Whoever can maintain their frame under pressure wins the social negotiation. For example, if someone tries to interrupt you during a presentation, you have several frame options. You could interpret it as disrespect and become defensive. You could interpret it as a sign that you're not communicating clearly and become apologetic. Or you could interpret it as enthusiasm and engagement and respond accordingly. The frame you choose determines how the interaction unfolds. Strong frame control means you never let other people's emotions, reactions, or behaviors change your interpretation of reality. If someone is rude to you, you don't automatically assume you did something wrong. You maintain your frame that you deserve respect and respond accordingly. If someone disagrees with you, you don't immediately doubt yourself. You stay confident in your perspective while remaining open to new information. The second principle is strategic positioning. In every social environment, there are positions of power and positions of weakness. Where you position yourself physically, socially, and psychologically determines how much influence you have. Most people position themselves randomly without any awareness of the strategic implications. Physically, you want to position yourself in places that naturally command attention and respect. In meetings, this might mean sitting where you can see everyone and everyone can see you. In social gatherings, this might mean positioning yourself near the center of activity or in places where people naturally congregate. Socially, you want to position yourself as someone who adds value to every interaction. You become the person who has interesting insights, useful connections, and valuable resources. You don't try to be the center of attention, but you consistently contribute in ways that make interactions better. Psychologically, you position yourself as someone who is confident, capable, and unshakable. You don't need approval from others, but you're genuinely interested in them. You don't need to be right about everything, but you're confident in your ability to figure things out. You don't need to control everything, but you're comfortable taking leadership when it's needed. The third principle is strategic communication. How you communicate sends constant signals about your status, confidence, and competence. Most people communicate reactively. They say whatever comes to mind without considering the strategic implications. They let emotions drive their communication instead of using communication strategically. Strategic communication means every word you speak serves a purpose. You're not just expressing yourself or sharing information. You're influencing perception, building relationships, and positioning yourself advantageously. This doesn't mean being manipulative or deceptive. It means being conscious about the impact of your communication. Tonality is crucial. The same words can convey completely different messages depending on how they're delivered. A confident tone conveys authority and competence. An uncertain tone conveys insecurity and weakness. A defensive tone conveys fear and vulnerability. You need to develop conscious control over your tonality so you can convey exactly the message you intend. Timing is equally important. Knowing when to speak and when to remain silent is a master-level skill. Sometimes the most powerful response to a challenge is no response at all. Sometimes the best way to maintain frame control is to let other people reveal their insecurity through their reactions. The fourth principle is emotional independence. Social dominance requires complete emotional independence from other people's reactions, opinions, and behaviors. Your internal state cannot be dependent on external validation or approval. You must be genuinely unaffected by criticism, rejection, or negative reactions. This doesn't mean being cold or disconnected. It means being so secure in yourself that other people's emotions and reactions don't destabilize you. You can care about people without being controlled by their moods. You can be empathetic without absorbing their anxiety or anger. Emotional independence develops through consistent practice of not taking things personally. When someone is rude to you, you recognize that their behavior reflects their internal state, not your worth as a person. When someone rejects your ideas, you understand that rejection is information, not a personal attack. The ultimate expression of social dominance is the ability to elevate everyone around you while maintaining your position of influence. You don't dominate through suppression or intimidation. You dominate through inspiration and leadership. You make other people feel better about themselves while naturally becoming the person they look to for guidance and direction. Chapter 7. Bulletproof Psychology. How to handle any attack. In life, you will face criticism, rejection, attacks, and attempts to undermine your confidence. How you handle these challenges determines whether you develop bulletproof psychology or remain vulnerable to other people's negativity. Most people have no defense against psychological attacks. They take everything personally, let criticism destroy their confidence, and allow other people's opinions to control their self-worth. Dangerous confidence requires developing psychological armor that protects you from external attacks while keeping you open to legitimate feedback and growth opportunities. This armor is not about becoming cold, defensive, or closed off. It's about developing such strong inner certainty that external negativity cannot penetrate your core sense of self. The first component of bulletproof psychology is understanding the psychology of attackers. People who attack others are almost always operating from their own insecurity, fear, or pain. Confident, secure people don't need to tear others down. They don't need to criticize, demean, or undermine. They're too busy building their own success to waste energy attacking others. When someone attacks you, they're revealing something about themselves, not about you. They might be threatened by your confidence or success. They might be projecting their own insecurities onto you. They might be having a bad day and taking it out on the nearest target. Understanding this doesn't mean excusing bad behavior, but it does mean not taking it as evidence of your inadequacy. Criticism comes in two forms: constructive feedback and destructive attacks. Constructive feedback is specific, actionable, and delivered with good intentions. It's designed to help you improve. Destructive attacks are vague, personal, and delivered with malicious intent. They're designed to hurt you or tear you down. Learning to distinguish between these two types of criticism is crucial for bulletproof psychology. When you receive constructive feedback, you listen carefully, extract whatever value you can, and use it to improve. When you face destructive attacks, you recognize them for what they are and refuse to let them affect your self-worth. The second component is developing what psychologists call cognitive immunity. This is your ability to evaluate information objectively instead of accepting it automatically. Most people have no cognitive immunity. They believe whatever they hear about themselves, especially if it's negative. They internalize criticism without questioning its validity or source. Cognitive immunity means subjecting all external input to rigorous evaluation. When someone criticizes you, you ask yourself, is this person qualified to judge this aspect of my life? Do they have my best interests at heart? Is their criticism specific and actionable, or vague and destructive? Is there evidence to support their claims, or are they making unfounded assertions? This evaluation process protects you from internalizing false or unfair criticism while remaining open to legitimate feedback. You develop the ability to take what's useful and discard what's harmful. You become like a sophisticated filter system that only allows valuable information to reach your core sense of self. The third component is emotional detachment from outcomes. Bulletproof psychology requires accepting that you cannot control other people's reactions, opinions, or behaviors. You can only control your own actions and responses. When you become emotionally attached to specific outcomes, you make yourself vulnerable to disappointment and manipulation. This doesn't mean not caring about results or becoming apathetic. It means caring deeply about your effort and performance while remaining detached from specific outcomes. You give everything your best effort, then accept whatever results without letting them define your self-worth. Emotional detachment also means not needing approval from specific people or groups. You can appreciate approval when you receive it, but your confidence doesn't depend on getting it. You can be disappointed by rejection without being destroyed by it. You maintain your sense of self regardless of external validation or criticism. The fourth component is reframing adversity as strength training. Every attack, criticism, or challenge is an opportunity to strengthen your psychological resilience. Just like physical muscles grow stronger when subjected to resistance, your psychological muscles grow stronger when subjected to adversity. When someone tries to tear you down, you use it as practice for maintaining your composure under pressure. When someone rejects your ideas, you use it as practice for handling disappointment gracefully. When someone questions your competence, you use it as motivation to develop even greater competence. This reframing transforms challenges from threats into opportunities. Instead of avoiding difficult situations or people, you seek them out as training opportunities. You welcome resistance because you know it's making you stronger and more resilient. The fifth component is developing multiple sources of self-worth. Most people derive their confidence from one or two sources: their job, their relationship, their appearance, or their achievements. This makes them extremely vulnerable because any threat to these sources threatens their entire sense of self. Bulletproof psychology requires diversifying your sources of self-worth. You derive confidence from your character, your values, your relationships, your skills, your contributions, your growth, and your potential. If one area faces challenges, you have multiple other sources to maintain your confidence. This diversification also includes developing internal sources of validation, rather than relying entirely on external approval. You learn to acknowledge your own progress, celebrate your own victories, and appreciate your own efforts. You become your own source of positive reinforcement instead of depending on others to make you feel good about yourself. The final component is building what military psychologists call stress inoculation. This is deliberately exposing yourself to manageable levels of stress, criticism, and adversity, so you build tolerance and resilience. If you only operate in comfortable, supportive environments, you remain vulnerable to any unexpected challenges. Stress inoculation means gradually exposing yourself to more difficult situations, challenging conversations, and potentially critical audiences. You start with manageable challenges and gradually increase the difficulty as your tolerance grows. This process builds genuine confidence based on proven ability to handle adversity. Chapter 8. High-Pressure Performance. Confidence under fire. The true test of dangerous confidence is how you perform under pressure. Anyone can feel confident in comfortable, familiar situations. But real confidence means maintaining your composure, clarity, and capability when stakes are high, time is limited, and everything is on the line. This is where most people's confidence crumbles, but it's where truly confident people shine brightest. High-pressure situations reveal who you really are. They strip away pretense, expose weaknesses, and demand authentic competence. You cannot fake your way through genuine pressure. You cannot rely on superficial confidence techniques when everything matters. You need deep, unshakable inner certainty that has been tested and proven through experience. The psychology of pressure is fascinating and predictable. When stakes increase, your nervous system activates the same ancient survival mechanisms that kept your ancestors alive. Your body floods with stress hormones. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your attention narrows. Your prefrontal cortex, responsible for complex thinking and decision-making, begins to shut down. For most people, this physiological response is devastating. They become reactive instead of strategic. They make poor decisions because they cannot think clearly. They communicate poorly because they cannot access their full intelligence. They perform below their capabilities because their nervous system is fighting against them. But pressure can also be performance-enhancing if you know how to work with it instead of against it. The same physiological arousal that destroys some people's performance can sharpen focus, increase energy, and enhance performance for others. The difference is not in the intensity of the response, but in how you interpret and channel it. The first principle of high-pressure performance is reframing arousal as excitement rather than anxiety. The physiological symptoms of excitement and anxiety are nearly identical: increased heart rate, heightened alertness, and elevated energy. The difference is purely psychological. When you interpret arousal as excitement, it enhances performance. When you interpret it as anxiety, it impairs performance. This reframing requires conscious practice. When you feel your heart racing before an important presentation, instead of thinking, "I'm nervous and something might go wrong," you think, "I'm excited and ready to perform." This simple cognitive shift changes your relationship with pressure from adversarial to collaborative. The second principle is developing what athletes call the zone state. This is a psychological state where you are completely absorbed in the present moment, performing at peak capacity with minimal conscious effort. In the zone, self-doubt disappears. Fear vanishes. You are purely focused on execution. The zone state has specific characteristics that you can learn to cultivate. Time perception shifts. Difficult tasks feel effortless. Self-consciousness disappears. Performance becomes automatic. You stop thinking about what you're doing and just do it with complete confidence and capability. Accessing the zone requires 3 elements: clear objectives, immediate feedback, and balanced challenge. You need to know exactly what you're trying to accomplish. You need real-time information about how you're performing, and the challenge level needs to be neither too easy nor too difficult, but perfectly matched to your current capabilities. The third principle is preparation that builds unshakable confidence. Most people prepare by trying to memorize information or rehearse specific responses. This type of preparation actually increases anxiety because it makes you rigid and dependent on specific conditions. When anything changes, your preparation becomes useless and your confidence evaporates. Effective preparation focuses on developing adaptive capability rather than specific responses. Instead of memorizing exactly what you'll say, you become so knowledgeable about your topic that you can discuss it fluently from any angle. Instead of rehearsing specific scenarios, you develop general skills that apply to any situation. This type of preparation builds what psychologists call self-efficacy, confidence in your ability to handle whatever comes up. You're not confident because you know exactly what will happen. You're confident because you know you can adapt to whatever does happen. The fourth principle is breath control as the foundation of everything else. Your breathing directly controls your nervous system activation. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes calm, clear thinking. When you breathe quickly and shallowly, you activate your sympathetic nervous system, which triggers stress responses. Most people completely ignore their breathing when pressure increases. They let their breathing become rapid and shallow, which amplifies their stress response and impairs their performance. Learning to control your breathing under pressure is like having a remote control for your nervous system. Effective breathing for high-pressure performance involves deep diaphragmatic breathing with extended exhales. You breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, and exhale for 6 counts. This pattern quickly shifts your nervous system into a calm, focused state that enhances rather than impairs performance. The fifth principle is maintaining strategic thinking despite emotional pressure. Pressure creates tunnel vision. You become so focused on immediate threats that you lose sight of broader objectives and strategic considerations. You react to whatever is happening right now instead of thinking about what should happen next. Strategic thinking under pressure requires deliberately expanding your perspective. You force yourself to step back mentally and consider the bigger picture. What are you really trying to accomplish? What are your options? What are the likely consequences of different choices? What would a calm, strategic person do in this situation? This mental stepping back is difficult when pressure is high, but it's essential for peak performance. It prevents you from getting caught up in emotional reactions and helps you make decisions based on logic and strategy rather than fear and anxiety. The final principle is using pressure as fuel for extraordinary performance. Instead of trying to eliminate pressure or minimize its effects, you learn to harness its energy for enhanced performance. Pressure becomes a signal that something important is happening and you need to bring your best effort. Great performers in every field understand this principle. They don't try to avoid pressure, they seek it out. They don't try to feel calm, they try to feel energized. They don't fear high-stakes situations, they thrive in them because they know pressure brings out their best. Chapter 9. Unshakable Self-Worth. Building Confidence from the Core. True confidence cannot be built on external foundations. It cannot be based on achievements, possessions, other people's opinions, or temporary circumstances. All of these things can change or disappear, and when they do, so does any confidence built upon them. Dangerous confidence requires unshakable self-worth that comes from your core identity rather than external circumstances. Most people build their confidence like a house of cards. They stack achievement on top of achievement, approval on top of approval, success on top of success. hoping to eventually feel good enough. But this approach is fundamentally flawed because it makes your confidence dependent on maintaining perfect performance and constant external validation. The moment anything goes wrong, the entire structure collapses. Unshakable self-worth is built on a completely different foundation. It's based on your inherent value as a human being, rather than your performance or achievements. It's rooted in your character, values, and potential rather than your current circumstances. It's grounded in who you are, rather than what you do. This doesn't mean achievements and performance don't matter. They absolutely do. But they should enhance your confidence, not define it. Your self-worth should remain stable whether you're succeeding or struggling, whether you're being praised or criticized, whether you're winning or losing. The first pillar of unshakable self-worth is separating your identity from your results. You are not your achievements. You are not your failures. You are not your job title, your bank account, your relationship status, or your social media following. These are all external circumstances that can change. Your core identity is something deeper and more permanent. This separation requires developing what psychologists call outcome independence. You can care deeply about your results while not deriving your self-worth from them. You can be disappointed by failure without questioning your fundamental value. You can be proud of success without becoming dependent on it for confidence. Outcome independence develops through conscious practice of evaluating yourself based on effort and process rather than just results. Did you prepare thoroughly? Did you give your best effort? Did you act according to your values? Did you learn something valuable? These process-focused questions help you maintain confidence even when results are disappointing. The second pillar is developing unconditional self-acceptance. This means accepting yourself completely, including your flaws, limitations, and mistakes. Most people practice conditional self-acceptance. They only like themselves when they're performing well, looking good, or meeting their own standards. This creates constant internal pressure and chronic insecurity. Unconditional self-acceptance doesn't mean being satisfied with mediocrity or avoiding growth. It means accepting where you are right now, while working toward where you want to be. It means treating yourself with compassion and understanding, rather than constant criticism and judgment. This acceptance extends to your past mistakes and failures. Instead of carrying guilt and shame about previous errors, you view them as learning experiences that contributed to your current wisdom and capabilities. You cannot change the past, but you can change how you interpret and use it. The third pillar is clarifying and living according to your core values. Values are the principles and beliefs that guide your decisions and behavior. When you live according to your values, you feel aligned and authentic. When you violate your values, you feel conflicted and insecure, regardless of external circumstances. Most people have never clearly identified their core values. They drift through life, making decisions based on immediate circumstances, other people's expectations, or social pressure. This creates internal inconsistency and chronic uncertainty about who they are and what they stand for. Identifying your values requires deep reflection about what truly matters to you. Not what you think should matter, not what others expect to matter, but what actually matters to you personally. Common core values include integrity, growth, connection, contribution, freedom, security, adventure, and creativity. Once you identify your values, you need to align your behavior with them consistently. This means making decisions based on your values, rather than fear, convenience, or social pressure. It means standing up for what you believe in, even when it's difficult or unpopular. The fourth pillar is developing what psychologists call intrinsic motivation. This is motivation that comes from internal satisfaction rather than external rewards. When you're intrinsically motivated, you pursue goals because they align with your interests, values, and sense of purpose, not because of money, status, or approval. Intrinsic motivation creates sustainable confidence because it's not dependent on external validation. You feel good about your efforts regardless of whether others recognize or reward them. You find satisfaction in the process of growth and contribution rather than just the outcomes. Developing intrinsic motivation requires identifying what genuinely interests and energizes you. What activities make you lose track of time? What challenges excite rather than stress you? What contributions make you feel meaningful and valuable? These are clues to your intrinsic motivations. The fifth pillar is building what resilience researchers call anti-fragility. This is the ability to not just survive adversity, but to grow stronger because of it. Most people are fragile in the face of challenges. Adversity breaks them down and diminishes their confidence. Some people are resilient. They bounce back from adversity to their previous level of confidence. But anti-fragile people actually benefit from adversity. Challenges make them stronger, more capable, and more confident. They don't just recover from setbacks. They use setbacks as opportunities for growth and development. Anti-fragility develops through deliberately seeking challenges that stretch your capabilities and force you to grow. Instead of avoiding difficult situations, you embrace them as opportunities to build strength and resilience. Instead of viewing failure as evidence of inadequacy, you view it as valuable feedback and learning opportunity. The final pillar is developing what spiritual traditions call presence or mindfulness. This is the ability to be fully engaged with the present moment, rather than lost in thoughts about the past or future. When you're truly present, self-doubt disappears, because self-doubt always involves thoughts about past failures or future disasters. Presence also connects you with your authentic self beneath all the social roles, expectations, and conditioning. In moments of true presence, you access a deep sense of being that is inherently confident and capable. This presence-based confidence is unshakable because it's not based on anything that can be taken away. Chapter 10. Mental Bulletproofing. Building Unbreakable Psychology. The final stage of developing dangerous confidence is mental bulletproofing. This is the process of building psychological resilience so strong that nothing can break your spirit, shake your confidence, or derail your progress. Mental bulletproofing goes beyond just handling challenges well. It means becoming the type of person who actually thrives under pressure and grows stronger through adversity. Mental bulletproofing is not about becoming emotionally numb or disconnected. It's about developing such strong psychological foundations that you can feel emotions fully while never being controlled by them. You can experience disappointment without becoming discouraged. You can feel fear without becoming paralyzed. You can face uncertainty without becoming anxious. The first element of mental bulletproofing is developing what psychologists call psychological flexibility. This is your ability to adapt your thinking and behavior to changing circumstances. while maintaining your core identity and values. Most people are psychologically rigid. They have fixed ways of thinking and behaving that work in some situations but fail in others. Psychological flexibility means having multiple strategies for any situation. If one approach doesn't work, you can quickly shift to another without losing confidence or becoming frustrated. You view challenges as puzzles to solve rather than threats to survive. You maintain curiosity and creativity even under pressure. This flexibility develops through deliberately exposing yourself to diverse experiences and perspectives. You seek out situations that challenge your assumptions and force you to think differently. You actively learn from people who have different backgrounds, beliefs, and approaches than you do. The second element is building what military psychologists call stress tolerance. This is your capacity to maintain peak performance under increasingly difficult conditions. Most people have very low stress tolerance. Small pressures throw them off balance and impair their thinking and decision-making. Stress tolerance builds through progressive exposure to increasingly challenging situations. You start with manageable stress and gradually increase the intensity as your capacity grows. This is similar to physical fitness training, where you progressively increase weight or difficulty to build strength and endurance. The key is staying just at the edge of your current capacity without overwhelming your system. If you take on too much stress too quickly, you can actually decrease your tolerance and create trauma. But if you consistently challenge yourself at the right level, your stress tolerance expands dramatically. The third element is developing what philosophers call existential confidence. This is confidence in your ability to create meaning and purpose, regardless of external circumstances. Most people derive their sense of meaning from external sources: their job, their relationships, their achievements, their social status. Existential confidence means you can find meaning and purpose even when external circumstances are difficult or uncertain. You understand that meaning is something you create rather than something you find. You take responsibility for your own sense of purpose rather than depending on others to provide it. This type of confidence is particularly important during major life transitions, setbacks, or periods of uncertainty. When external sources of meaning disappear or change, you maintain your sense of direction and purpose because it comes from within rather than from circumstances. The fourth element is building what positive psychologists call learned optimism. This is the ability to maintain hope and positive expectations even in the face of setbacks and challenges. Learned optimism is not naive positivity or denial of reality. It's a realistic but hopeful perspective that focuses on possibilities and solutions rather than problems and limitations. Learned optimism involves developing specific thinking patterns that support resilience and confidence. When bad things happen, you view them as temporary rather than permanent, specific rather than global, and external rather than personal. When good things happen, you view them as permanent, global, and personal. These thinking patterns aren't just feel-good techniques. They're based on decades of research showing that optimistic thinking patterns lead to better performance, better health, better relationships, and greater resilience in the face of adversity. The fifth element is developing what spiritual traditions call equanimity. This is the ability to remain calm and centered, regardless of whether circumstances are pleasant or unpleasant, successful or challenging, praised or criticized. Equanimity doesn't mean being indifferent or disconnected. It means being fully engaged while remaining emotionally balanced. Equanimity develops through meditation, mindfulness practice, and conscious observation of your emotional reactions. You learn to witness your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You develop the ability to step back mentally and observe your experience from a broader perspective. This emotional balance is crucial for dangerous confidence because it prevents you from being thrown off course by temporary circumstances. You can appreciate success without becoming attached to it. You can learn from failure without being devastated by it. You maintain your center regardless of what's happening around you. The final element is what can only be described as philosophical confidence. This is confidence in your fundamental approach to life, your core values and beliefs, and your overall life direction. Philosophical confidence means you have clear answers to life's big questions. What matters most to you? How do you define success? What kind of person do you want to be? When you have philosophical confidence, you don't get thrown off course by other people's opinions, social trends, or temporary setbacks. You have a clear internal compass that guides your decisions and behavior. You know who you are and what you stand for. And this knowledge provides unshakable confidence in any situation. Building philosophical confidence requires deep reflection about your beliefs, values, and life direction. It means taking responsibility for creating your own philosophy of life, rather than just accepting what others have told you. It means being willing to question everything and arrive at your own conclusions about what matters most. The integration of all these elements creates what can only be described as unbreakable psychology. You become someone who cannot be intimidated, manipulated, or discouraged. You become someone who thrives under pressure and grows stronger through challenge. You become someone with truly dangerous confidence. Chapter 11. Advanced Social Engineering, Reading and Controlling Human Behavior. The highest level of dangerous confidence involves understanding human psychology so deeply that you can predict and influence behavior with surgical precision. This isn't about manipulation or deception. This is about developing such sophisticated social intelligence that you can navigate any interpersonal situation with complete confidence and effectiveness. You become someone who understands the hidden rules of human interaction that most people never even notice. Human behavior follows predictable patterns. People are driven by fundamental psychological needs that remain consistent across cultures, personalities, and circumstances. Once you understand these patterns, you can read people like open books. You can predict how they'll react in different situations. You can influence their responses by strategically triggering the right psychological mechanisms. The first fundamental need is the need for significance. Every human being wants to feel important, valued, and respected. This need drives enormous amounts of human behavior. People will go to extraordinary lengths to feel significant, even if it means acting against their own best interests. Understanding this need gives you tremendous insight into human motivation. When you make other people feel significant, they naturally gravitate toward you. When you threaten their sense of significance, they become defensive and resistant. This is why traditional dominance strategies often backfire. When you try to establish your superiority by making others feel inferior, you trigger their defensive mechanisms and create conflict. Advanced social engineering involves making others feel significant while simultaneously establishing your own authority and competence. You acknowledge their expertise in certain areas while demonstrating your expertise in others. You show respect for their opinions while maintaining confidence in your own perspectives. You create win-win dynamics where everyone feels valued. The second fundamental need is the need for certainty. Humans are terrified of uncertainty and ambiguity. We need to feel like we understand what's happening and what's going to happen next. This need for certainty makes people predictable in specific ways. When facing uncertainty, people default to familiar patterns, look for authority figures to follow, and gravitate toward anyone who projects confidence and clarity. You can leverage this need by becoming a source of certainty for others. When everyone else is confused or uncertain, you remain calm and clear. When others are overwhelmed by complexity, you simplify and clarify. When others are paralyzed by too many options, you provide clear direction and leadership. This doesn't mean pretending to know things you don't know. It means being genuinely confident in your ability to figure things out as you go. It means projecting calm certainty about your capacity to handle whatever comes up, even if you don't know exactly what that will be. The third fundamental need is the need for connection. Humans are social creatures who need to feel understood, accepted, and valued by others. This need drives most social behavior and creates predictable patterns you can learn to recognize and influence. People connect most strongly with others who demonstrate genuine understanding and acceptance. This happens through what psychologists call mirroring and matching. When you subtly match someone's communication style, energy level, and emotional state, they feel understood at a subconscious level. They experience you as being similar to them, which triggers natural bonding mechanisms. Advanced mirroring goes beyond just copying someone's body language or speaking patterns. It involves understanding their underlying values, motivations, and worldview, then communicating in ways that resonate with their deeper psychological needs. You become fluent in multiple communication styles, so you can connect authentically with different personality types. The fourth fundamental need is the need for growth and contribution. Humans need to feel like they're developing, progressing, and making meaningful contributions to something larger than themselves. This need creates opportunities for influence because people are naturally drawn to others who can help them grow or provide opportunities for meaningful contribution. When you position yourself as someone who can facilitate others' growth or provide opportunities for meaningful contribution, you become extremely influential. People want to be around you because you help them become better versions of themselves. They trust your judgment because they see you as invested in their development. This requires genuine interest in others' development and success. You cannot fake this effectively. You need to authentically care about helping others grow and succeed. When this care is genuine, it creates powerful bonds and lasting influence. Understanding these fundamental needs allows you to read people's behavior with remarkable accuracy. When someone is being difficult or resistant, you can often trace their behavior back to one of these needs not being met. They might feel insignificant, uncertain, disconnected, or stagnant. Once you identify the underlying need, you can address it strategically. Advanced social engineering also involves understanding social proof and authority dynamics. People look to others for cues about how to behave, what to believe, and who to follow. They're especially influenced by people they perceive as similar to themselves and by people they perceive as authorities in relevant domains. You can leverage social proof by associating yourself with respected individuals and groups, by demonstrating that other credible people value your opinions and abilities, and by creating evidence of your expertise and success. This isn't about name-dropping or bragging. It's about strategically positioning yourself in ways that naturally communicate your competence and value. Authority dynamics are equally important. People naturally defer to perceived authority, but authority comes in many forms. There's positional authority based on titles and roles. There's expert authority based on knowledge and competence. There's moral authority based on character and integrity. There's charismatic authority based on presence and influence. The most powerful combination is expert authority combined with moral authority. When people perceive you as both highly competent and genuinely trustworthy, they willingly follow your lead. They seek your opinions and defer to your judgment. They become advocates for your ideas and supporters of your initiatives. Building this type of authority requires consistent demonstration of competence coupled with unwavering integrity. You must be genuinely good at what you do, and you must consistently act in ways that align with your stated values. Any inconsistency between your words and actions undermines your authority and credibility. The final element of advanced social engineering is understanding and leveraging reciprocity dynamics. Humans have a deep psychological need to reciprocate favors, gifts, and positive treatment. This creates opportunities for influence, because strategic giving creates psychological obligations that people feel compelled to fulfill. However, reciprocity only works when it feels genuine and appropriate. If your giving feels calculated or manipulative, it triggers resistance instead of obligation. The key is genuine generosity that provides real value to others without obvious strings attached. This might involve sharing valuable information, making useful introductions, providing helpful feedback, or offering assistance with important projects. The value you provide should be meaningful to the recipient and within your natural capacity to give, when done authentically. This type of giving creates powerful, positive dynamics that enhance your influence and relationships. Mastering these principles allows you to navigate any social situation with complete confidence. You understand what's really happening beneath the surface of interactions. You can predict how people will respond to different approaches. You can influence outcomes by strategically addressing underlying psychological needs. You become someone who understands the game of human interaction at a level that most people never reach. Chapter 12. Momentum Mastery. Building unstoppable forward progress. Dangerous confidence is not just about feeling confident in isolated moments. It's about building unstoppable momentum that carries you forward regardless of obstacles, setbacks, or external circumstances. Momentum is the difference between people who achieve extraordinary things and people who remain stuck in cycles of starting and stopping. Once you master momentum, success becomes inevitable because you develop the ability to maintain forward progress under any conditions. Most people completely misunderstand momentum. They think it's about motivation, inspiration, or feeling energized. They wait for the right mood, the perfect circumstances, or the ideal moment to take action. This approach guarantees failure because motivation is temporary and circumstances are never perfect. Real momentum is built on systems, habits, and psychological frameworks that function independently of how you feel or what's happening around you. The foundation of momentum mastery is understanding the psychology of consistency. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine that's constantly looking for evidence about who you are and what you're capable of. Every action you take is either reinforcing positive patterns or negative patterns. Every choice you make is either building momentum or destroying it. When you consistently take positive actions, your brain begins to see you as someone who follows through, who keeps commitments, who achieves goals. This creates a positive identity that makes future positive actions easier and more automatic. Your brain starts expecting success because success becomes your normal pattern. Conversely, when you consistently break commitments to yourself, procrastinate, or give up when things get difficult, your brain sees you as unreliable and incapable. This creates a negative identity that makes future positive actions harder and less likely. Your brain starts expecting failure because failure becomes your normal pattern. The key insight is that momentum is built through small, consistent actions rather than occasional large efforts. Most people try to build momentum through dramatic gestures, starting intense workout routines, launching ambitious projects, or making radical life changes. These approaches usually fail because they're unsustainable, and they set you up for dramatic failures that damage your confidence. Real momentum builds through what researchers call marginal gains. These are small improvements and consistent actions that compound over time to create extraordinary results. You don't need to make dramatic changes. You need to make small, sustainable changes that you can maintain consistently over months and years. For example, instead of committing to work out for 2 hours every day, you commit to exercising for 20 minutes every day. Instead of trying to read 50 pages per day, you commit to reading 10 pages per day. Instead of attempting to completely transform your diet overnight, you make one small improvement each week. These small commitments feel easy to maintain, which means you're likely to keep them consistently. Each time you keep a commitment to yourself, you build evidence that you're someone who follows through. This evidence creates confidence and makes future commitments easier to maintain. The compounding effect of these small actions is extraordinary. Reading 10 pages per day equals 3,650 pages per year, which is roughly 12 minus 15 books. Exercising 20 minutes per day equals over 120 hours of exercise per year. Making one small dietary improvement per week equals 52 improvements over the course of a year. But the real power of this approach is psychological. Each small success builds confidence and momentum. You begin to see yourself as someone who achieves goals. You develop trust in your ability to follow through on commitments. You build what psychologists call self-efficacy, confidence in your ability to execute plans and achieve desired outcomes. The second principle of momentum mastery is creating what systems theorists call positive feedback loops. These are self-reinforcing cycles where positive actions create positive results, which motivate more positive actions, which create even better results. Once you establish positive feedback loops, momentum becomes self-sustaining. For example, if you commit to learning something new every day, you become more knowledgeable, which makes you more confident, which makes you more willing to take on challenges, which creates more learning opportunities, which makes you even more knowledgeable. The cycle feeds on itself and accelerates over time. Building positive feedback loops requires identifying activities that create multiple benefits simultaneously. Exercise improves physical health, mental clarity, emotional resilience, and self-confidence. Reading improves knowledge, thinking skills, vocabulary, and perspective. Networking improves relationships, opportunities, influence, and social skills. When you focus on activities that create multiple benefits, you get exponential returns on your time and energy investment. Each action you take improves multiple areas of your life simultaneously, which creates rapid progress and strong momentum. The third principle is developing what military strategists call operational momentum. This is the ability to maintain forward progress even when individual battles are lost or specific tactics fail. Instead of being derailed by setbacks, you adapt quickly and continue moving toward your objectives. Operational momentum requires separating your identity from specific outcomes. You're not trying to be perfect or to succeed at everything. You're trying to maintain consistent forward progress over time. Some days will be better than others. Some strategies will work better than others. Some projects will succeed, while others fail. None of this matters as long as your overall trajectory remains positive. This perspective allows you to be resilient in the face of temporary setbacks. When something doesn't work out, you extract whatever lessons you can, adjust your approach, and keep moving forward. You don't waste time and energy dwelling on failures or questioning your overall direction. You maintain focus on the next action you can take to move closer to your goals. The fourth principle is energy management, rather than time management. Most people try to build momentum by managing their time more efficiently. They create detailed schedules, use productivity apps, and try to squeeze more activities into each day. This approach often backfires because it focuses on quantity rather than quality of effort. Momentum mastery requires understanding that energy, not time, is your most valuable resource. You have different types of energy: physical, mental, emotional, and creative. Each type follows predictable patterns and can be optimized through specific strategies. Physical energy comes from sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress management. Mental energy comes from focused work, learning, and intellectual challenges. Emotional energy comes from positive relationships, meaningful activities, and alignment with your values. Creative energy comes from novelty, inspiration, and unstructured thinking time. Building momentum requires optimizing all forms of energy and aligning your most important activities with your peak energy periods. Instead of trying to work constantly, you work strategically. When you have the right type of energy for specific tasks, the fifth principle is creating environmental momentum. Your environment has enormous influence on your behavior and energy levels. When your environment supports positive actions, momentum builds naturally. When your environment creates friction or promotes negative behaviors, momentum becomes extremely difficult to maintain. Environmental momentum involves designing your physical and social environments to make positive behaviors easier and negative behaviors harder. This might mean organizing your workspace to minimize distractions, surrounding yourself with people who support your goals, or removing temptations that undermine your progress. You also need to create what behavioral economists call choice architecture. This involves structuring your decisions so that positive choices become the default option. Instead of relying on willpower to make good choices, you make good choices automatic through smart environmental design. The final principle is celebrating progress rather than just achievement. Most people only acknowledge success when they reach major milestones or final goals. This approach undermines momentum because it provides very little positive reinforcement for the daily actions that create long-term success. Momentum mastery requires celebrating small wins and recognizing progress at every level. Each time you keep a commitment to yourself, you acknowledge it. Each time you take a positive action, you appreciate it. Each time you make progress toward a goal, you celebrate it. This celebration doesn't need to be elaborate or time-consuming. It can be as simple as acknowledging to yourself that you did what you said you would do. The key is creating positive emotional associations with the behaviors that build momentum. When you feel good about taking positive actions, you become more likely to repeat those actions in the future. Chapter 13. The Confidence Hierarchy. Understanding and climbing the social ladder. Every social environment has an invisible hierarchy that determines who has influence, who gets respected, and who gets followed. Most people are completely unaware of these hierarchies, which means they accidentally position themselves at lower levels and wonder why they don't get the respect or opportunities they think they deserve. Dangerous confidence requires understanding exactly how social hierarchies work and positioning yourself strategically to maximize your influence and effectiveness. Social hierarchies are not about titles, money, or formal authority. Although these factors can play a role, real social hierarchies are based on perceived value, competence, and confidence. The people at the top of any hierarchy are there because others perceive them as valuable, capable, and deserving of respect. Understanding what creates these perceptions allows you to position yourself strategically. The foundation of any social hierarchy is competence. People naturally defer to those who demonstrate genuine expertise and capability in relevant areas. This competence must be real and demonstrable, not just claimed or assumed. Others can sense the difference between genuine competence and fake confidence very quickly. Building competence requires focused development of skills and knowledge that matter in your specific context. If you're in a business environment, this might mean developing expertise in strategy, leadership, communication, or technical skills. If you're in a social environment, this might mean developing emotional intelligence, conversation skills, or cultural knowledge. The key is developing competence that others can observe and verify. You need to demonstrate your capabilities through your actions, decisions, and results, rather than just talking about them. People judge competence based on what they see you do, not what they hear you say. However, competence alone is not enough to achieve high status in social hierarchies. Many highly competent people remain at lower levels because they fail to communicate their competence effectively or because they lack other essential qualities that create influence and respect. The second level of the hierarchy is confidence. This is not arrogance or self-promotion, but genuine inner certainty about your abilities and value. Confident people are comfortable taking responsibility, making decisions, and standing behind their choices. They don't need constant validation or approval from others. Confidence is communicated through body language, voice tone, decision-making speed, and willingness to take calculated risks. Confident people speak with authority, maintain strong eye contact, and move with purpose. They don't hedge their statements with uncertainty or constantly seek approval for their opinions. Building authentic confidence requires the competence foundation we discussed, combined with experience successfully handling challenges and pressure. You cannot fake this type of confidence because it emerges from genuine capability and proven performance under difficult conditions. The third level is social intelligence. This is the ability to read social dynamics, understand what others need and want, and navigate interpersonal relationships skillfully. Socially intelligent people understand unspoken rules, pick up on subtle cues, and know how to make others feel valued and understood. Social intelligence involves understanding different personality types and communication styles. You learn to adapt your approach based on who you're dealing with and what the situation requires. You become skilled at building rapport, managing conflict, and facilitating productive interactions. This level of the hierarchy is often where technical experts get stuck. They have competence and confidence in their domain of expertise, but they lack the social skills necessary to influence others and build strong relationships. Developing social intelligence is crucial for moving to higher levels of any hierarchy. The fourth level is leadership ability. This is the capacity to inspire others, create shared vision, and coordinate group efforts toward common goals. Leadership is not about having formal authority or being in charge. It's about the ability to influence others voluntarily and create positive outcomes for groups and organizations. Leadership ability emerges from the combination of competence, confidence, and social intelligence. But it also requires additional qualities like integrity, vision, and emotional resilience. Leaders take responsibility for group outcomes, make difficult decisions under pressure, and maintain optimism and direction. Even when facing challenges, people naturally follow those who demonstrate genuine leadership ability because they trust these individuals to make good decisions and create positive outcomes. Leadership positions you at high levels of social hierarchies because others voluntarily defer to your judgment and direction. The fifth and highest level is what can only be described as presence or charisma. This is an intangible quality that makes certain people naturally magnetic and influential. Presence combines all the lower levels: competence, confidence, social intelligence, and leadership, with something extra that creates almost mystical influence over others. People with true presence don't just command respect, they inspire devotion. Others are naturally drawn to them and want to be around them. They have the ability to shift the energy in any room and influence the emotional state of groups through their mere presence. Presence cannot be manufactured or faked, but it can be developed through the integration of all other levels combined with deep personal development work. It emerges from authentic self-knowledge, clear purpose, and genuine care for others' well-being and development. Understanding these levels allows you to assess your current position in various hierarchies and identify what you need to develop to move higher. Most people try to skip levels or focus on the wrong areas for their current stage of development. For example, someone with limited competence who tries to project confidence will be quickly exposed as a fraud. Someone with competence and confidence who lacks social intelligence will struggle to build the relationships necessary for leadership roles. Someone with all the technical qualifications who lacks presence will find themselves passed over for the highest levels of influence and authority. The strategic approach is to systematically develop each level while building on the foundations of previous levels. You start with genuine competence in areas that matter to your goals and context. You build authentic confidence through proven performance and capability. You develop social intelligence through focused study and practice of interpersonal skills. You cultivate leadership ability by taking responsibility for group outcomes and practicing influence and coordination skills. Finally, you develop presence through deep personal development work that integrates all these capabilities with authentic self-knowledge and genuine care for others. Moving up social hierarchies also requires understanding and respecting the unwritten rules of each level. Each level has different expectations, responsibilities, and codes of conduct. What works at lower levels may be inappropriate or counterproductive at higher levels. For example, at lower levels of competence, it's appropriate to ask many questions and seek guidance frequently. At higher levels of competence, you're expected to provide guidance and answers rather than constantly seeking them. At lower levels of confidence, it's acceptable to be uncertain and tentative. At higher levels, others expect decisiveness and clear direction. Understanding these transitions allows you to adjust your behavior appropriately as you move to higher levels. You gradually take on more responsibility, provide more leadership, and become a source of stability and direction for others, rather than someone who needs guidance and support. The ultimate goal is not just to climb hierarchies for personal benefit, but to use your position to create positive outcomes for others and contribute meaningfully to the groups and organizations you're part of. True confidence and influence come from using your capabilities in service of purposes larger than yourself. Chapter 14. Fear. Alchemy. Transforming terror into unstoppable power. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is raw energy that can either paralyze you or propel you to extraordinary performance. The difference between people who achieve dangerous confidence and those who remain trapped in insecurity is not the absence of fear, but the ability to transform fear into fuel for exceptional performance. This transformation process, which I call fear alchemy, is perhaps the most powerful skill you can develop for building unshakable confidence. Most people have a completely backwards relationship with fear. They try to eliminate it, avoid it, or pretend it doesn't exist. This approach is not only ineffective, it's counterproductive. Fear is a fundamental part of human psychology that serves important functions. Trying to eliminate fear is like trying to eliminate hunger or thirst. It's fighting against your basic human nature. The people who achieve the most in life are not those who feel the least fear. They're those who feel fear intensely, but have learned to channel that energy constructively. They understand that fear is information, energy, and opportunity, all rolled into one powerful experience. Fear is information because it tells you that something important is at stake. When you feel fear, it means you're approaching something that matters to you. If nothing mattered, you would never feel afraid. Fear is your psychological system recognizing that you're in a situation where the outcome could significantly impact your life, goals, or well-being. This information is valuable because it helps you identify what's truly important to you. The things that scare you most are often the things that would have the greatest positive impact on your life if you could accomplish them. Fear is pointing you toward your greatest opportunities for growth and achievement. Fear is energy because it triggers powerful physiological responses that can enhance performance when channeled correctly. When you feel afraid, your body releases adrenaline and other stress hormones that increase alertness, focus, and physical capability. your heart rate increases, pumping more blood to your muscles and brain. Your attention becomes laser-focused on immediate threats and opportunities. This physiological arousal is the same energy that athletes use to break records, performers use to deliver extraordinary shows, and leaders use to inspire others during crises. The energy of fear is not inherently negative. It becomes negative only when you interpret it as evidence that you should stop, retreat, or avoid the situation entirely. Fear is opportunity because it represents the edge of your comfort zone. Everything you want in life exists outside your current comfort zone. If you could achieve it from within your comfort zone, you would already have it. Fear is the signal that you're approaching the boundary between who you are now and who you could become. This means that fear is actually a compass pointing toward your greatest potential. Instead of running away from fear, you should be running toward it. Instead of avoiding situations that scare you, you should be seeking them out as opportunities for growth and expansion. The process of fear alchemy involves several specific techniques for transforming fear from a limiting force into an empowering force. The first technique is reframing fear as excitement. The physiological experience of fear and excitement are nearly identical. Increased heart rate, heightened alertness, and elevated energy. The only difference is the story you tell yourself about what these sensations mean. When you feel those familiar sensations of fear, instead of thinking, "I'm scared and something might go wrong," you consciously think, "I'm excited and something amazing is about to happen." This simple cognitive shift changes your entire relationship with the experience. Instead of wanting to escape the sensations, you begin to welcome them as signs that you're about to grow and achieve something meaningful. The second technique is using fear as a focusing mechanism. Fear naturally narrows your attention and eliminates distractions. Instead of fighting this focus, you can use it strategically to enhance your performance. When you feel afraid, you consciously direct that focused energy toward the specific actions you need to take. For example, if you're afraid before giving a presentation, instead of trying to calm down completely, you use that focused energy to review your key points, connect with your purpose for speaking, and prepare mentally for delivering value to your audience. The fear becomes fuel for preparation and performance rather than a distraction from them. The third technique is progressive exposure to build fear tolerance. Just like building physical strength requires progressive resistance training, building psychological strength requires progressive exposure to challenging situations. You systematically expose yourself to situations that create manageable levels of fear, building your tolerance and confidence gradually. This process works because each successful encounter with fear proves to your nervous system that the situation is manageable. Your brain learns that you can handle challenging situations and come out stronger. This builds genuine confidence based on proven capability rather than positive thinking or self-deception. The key is starting with situations that create mild to moderate fear rather than jumping into the deep end. If you're socially anxious, you might start by making eye contact with strangers, then progress to small talk, then to starting conversations, then to speaking in small groups, and eventually to public speaking. Each level builds confidence for the next level. The fourth technique is developing what psychologists call stress inoculation. This involves deliberately putting yourself in challenging situations when the stakes are relatively low so you build resilience for when stakes are high. It's like getting a vaccination against psychological overwhelm. For example, you might practice difficult conversations with friends before having them with your boss. You might practice presenting to small, supportive groups before presenting to large, critical audiences. You might practice taking calculated risks with small amounts of money before making larger financial decisions. This preparation builds confidence because when you face high-stakes situations, you've already proven to yourself that you can handle similar challenges. Your brain has evidence that you can perform under pressure, which reduces anxiety and increases confidence. The fifth technique is using fear as motivation for preparation. When you feel afraid of an upcoming challenge, instead of letting that fear paralyze you, you use it as energy for thorough preparation. Fear becomes your signal to start preparing more intensively. This preparation is not just about learning information or practicing skills. It's about mentally rehearsing success, visualizing positive outcomes, and building confidence through imaginary experience. Athletes use this technique extensively, mentally practicing their performance over and over until success feels familiar and automatic. The sixth technique is developing what military personnel call controlled aggression. This is the ability to channel fear energy into focused, determined action. Instead of letting fear make you passive or hesitant, you use it to become more decisive and action-oriented. Controlled aggression is not about being hostile or violent. It's about being assertive, direct, and unwavering in pursuit of your objectives. When you feel fear, you lean into it rather than backing away. You take more action, not less. You become more committed to your goals, not less committed. The final technique is finding purpose beyond yourself. Fear is most powerful when you're focused primarily on yourself, your safety, your comfort, your image, your success. When you connect with purposes larger than yourself, fear loses much of its power because you're no longer the center of the equation. When you're fighting for something you believe in, protecting people you care about, or contributing to causes that matter to you, fear becomes secondary to mission. You're willing to face fear because something more important than your comfort is at stake. This doesn't mean becoming reckless or ignoring legitimate dangers. It means developing the courage to act despite fear when action serves purposes larger than your immediate comfort and safety. This type of purpose-driven courage is the foundation of dangerous confidence because it makes you willing to face any challenge in service of what truly matters to you. Mastering fear, alchemy transforms your entire relationship with challenge and opportunity. Instead of avoiding difficult situations, you seek them out as opportunities for growth. Instead of being paralyzed by uncertainty, you're energized by possibility. Instead of being limited by fear, you're propelled by it toward extraordinary achievement and unshakable confidence. Chapter 15. The Complete Transformation. Becoming unrecognizably confident. Everything we've covered in this comprehensive system leads to this moment. Your complete transformation from who you are now into someone with dangerous confidence. This transformation is not gradual or subtle. When you fully implement these principles and techniques, you will become unrecognizably different from your previous self. People who knew you before will struggle to believe the change. You will look in the mirror and see a completely different person looking back. This transformation happens on multiple levels simultaneously: psychological, behavioral, social, and even physical. Your thought patterns change. Your decision-making process changes. Your relationships change. Your career trajectory changes. Your entire life reorganizes around your new level of confidence and capability. The psychological transformation is the deepest and most fundamental. Your internal dialogue shifts from self-doubt to self-assurance. Instead of constantly questioning whether you're good enough, smart enough, or capable enough, you develop unshakable inner certainty about your ability to handle whatever life presents. This doesn't mean believing you can do anything, but knowing you can figure out anything. Your relationship with failure changes completely. Instead of seeing failure as evidence of your inadequacy, you see it as valuable feedback and learning opportunity. You become anti-fragile, actually growing stronger through adversity rather than being diminished by it. Setbacks become set up for comebacks because you know how to extract value from every experience. Your relationship with other people's opinions changes dramatically. You shift from needing approval to appreciating it when it comes, but not depending on it for your self-worth. You become genuinely indifferent to criticism from people whose opinions don't matter, while remaining open to feedback from credible sources who can help you improve. The behavioral transformation is equally dramatic. You begin taking actions that your previous self would have found impossible. You speak up in meetings where you once remained silent. You pursue opportunities you once thought were beyond your reach. You have difficult conversations you once avoided. You take calculated risks you once considered too dangerous. Your communication style changes fundamentally. You speak with authority rather than uncertainty. You express your opinions clearly rather than hedging and qualifying everything you say. You ask for what you want directly rather than hoping others will guess your needs. You set boundaries firmly rather than allowing others to take advantage of you. Your decision-making becomes faster and more decisive. Instead of endlessly analyzing options and seeking input from others, you gather necessary information quickly, make decisions confidently, and adjust course as needed based on results. You trust your judgment because you've developed it through consistent practice and proven results. The social transformation affects every relationship in your life. Some relationships improve dramatically as you bring higher energy, clearer communication, and stronger boundaries. Other relationships end because they were based on your previous insecurity and cannot survive your newfound strength and clarity. You attract different types of people into your life. Instead of attracting those who want to take advantage of insecurity or uncertainty, you attract others who are confident, ambitious, and growth-oriented. Your social circle upgrades automatically because like attracts like in the realm of confidence and capability. Your professional life transforms as well. You begin getting opportunities that were previously unavailable because decision-makers can sense your confidence and capability. You're considered for leadership roles, challenging projects, and high-visibility assignments. Your income increases because confident, capable people are more valuable in virtually every field. The physical transformation might surprise you, but it's very real. Confidence changes how you carry yourself, how you move through space, and even how others perceive your physical appearance. You stand taller, move with more purpose, and project an energy that others find attractive and compelling. Your health often improves because confidence reduces stress, which is a major factor in many health problems. You sleep better because you're not lying awake worrying about problems you feel incapable of solving. You have more energy because you're not constantly fighting internal battles of self-doubt and insecurity. But transformation is not just about personal benefits. Dangerous confidence makes you more capable of contributing meaningfully to others and to causes larger than yourself. You become someone others can depend on, look up to, and learn from. You develop the strength to help others rather than constantly needing help yourself. This contribution aspect is crucial because dangerous confidence without purpose can become destructive. True confidence is always paired with responsibility. As your capability increases, so does your obligation to use that capability in service of positive outcomes for yourself and others. The maintenance of dangerous confidence requires understanding that transformation is not a destination, but an ongoing process. You don't reach a point where the work is done and you can coast on your achievements. Confidence requires constant cultivation through continued challenge, growth, and contribution. You must continue seeking situations that stretch your capabilities and force you to grow. You must continue learning new skills, taking on new challenges, and expanding your comfort zone. The moment you become complacent is the moment you begin losing the confidence you've worked so hard to build. You must also continue contributing to others and to purposes larger than yourself. Confidence that serves only selfish purposes eventually becomes hollow and meaningless. True fulfillment comes from using your capabilities to create positive impact in the world around you. The ongoing maintenance also requires protecting your confidence from influences that could undermine it. This means being selective about the people you spend time with, the media you consume, and the environments you frequent. You must guard your mental space as carefully as you would guard your physical health. It means saying no to opportunities, relationships, and commitments that drain your energy or conflict with your values. It means maintaining the habits, practices, and disciplines that built your confidence in the first place. It means never taking your confidence for granted or assuming it will maintain itself without conscious effort. The ultimate goal of dangerous confidence is not just personal success or satisfaction, although these are natural byproducts. The ultimate goal is becoming the type of person who makes the world better through their presence, contributions, and example. You become someone who inspires others to develop their own confidence and capabilities. You become a force for positive change in every environment you enter. Not through preaching or trying to fix others, but through embodying the qualities you want to see in the world. You demonstrate that it's possible to be confident without being arrogant, strong without being cruel, and successful without sacrificing integrity. This is what dangerous confidence really means. It's not about intimidating others or dominating situations. It's about being so secure in yourself, so clear about your values, and so committed to positive outcomes that nothing can shake your core sense of purpose and direction. You become genuinely dangerous to mediocrity, excuses, and limitations, while being a source of inspiration and possibility for everyone around you. Your transformation is complete when confidence becomes so natural that you're no longer conscious of it. You're not thinking about being confident because confidence has become your default state. You're not trying to project confidence because confidence radiates from you automatically. You're not working on confidence because confidence has become simply who you are. This is the ultimate expression of dangerous confidence, when it becomes so integrated into your identity that it's invisible to you but unmistakable to everyone else. You've become someone who not only possesses unshakable confidence, but who inspires and enables it in others. You've completed the journey from insecurity to dangerous confidence, and in doing so, you've become a completely different person with unlimited potential for impact, and achievement.